Hi, I'm Cindy Cloud with Riley Blake Designs, and today I'm going to take the mystery out of this clear vinyl tote. This was given to me by my friend Paula McKinley. This is our first fabric line that Riley Blake Designs ever put out on the market. It's still one of my favorites and near and dear to my heart. I love it. So the bag uses quilting cottons, and then it also has a vinyl clear cover, which makes it so useful because you can see your projects. It's an easy grab and go size, which I love also. So she told me how to make this, and I made my own version of this tote. So I used our new home deck. It's just a slightly tighter weave, and it's just gives you a little more structure to your tote. And so it's brand new, designed by Lori Holt, and I'll show you a lot of fun features about this fabric collection that makes it really easy to make this bag. Let's talk about, I also wanted to highlight the little charm I added to this. We have a lot of these little charms, and you probably wonder what to do with them. They are perfect for zipper pulls. So it just adds a little cuteness to the project. So let's begin by talking about what supplies are needed. You have the dimensions for the fabric. You'll also need to purchase fusible fleece. I have used, instead of fleece, I have used flannel, like 2 layers of flannel, and I've also used batting. Today I have batting, but it's really nice to use fusible fleece because you iron it on to both sides of your fabric and it stays put. Also, you're going to need a zipper. In my bag, I had a couple big zippers that were a fun, bright color. I love the contrast, but they're really difficult to sew with. So I would not suggest the big zippers like this because they will break your needles. You have to be very careful when you're sewing off the edges to not sew over your teeth because it will break your needle. So I suggest more a universal zipper that you can sew across, and you'll be glad you got one of those. So I'm just going to put this zipper away. So the last thing you're going to need is the vinyl, and there's different thicknesses. This one with the yellow paper on the back, you see these little markings, seems to be the best. It's really easy to sew with, and it's very durable. I like the thickness of it. So look for the yellow backing on that, and when you're cutting out your vinyl, leave the paper backing on. It'll be easier to sew with. So I'm going to move these over here. I'm going to move my tote over here, and these are 12.5 inches, and you can make different sizes of these. It's really nice to have a square up ruler to cut them out with. This is a little bit smaller, so if I want a little smaller bag, I use the big 12.5 inch ruler to cut them out. So that's really nice to make quick and easy bags for that. You have your fusible fleece, but I'm using batting this time. I'm going to try a different fill, but at this point you would sandwich your top and bottom piece, and then you would take it to the iron and fuse the sides on so it holds still. But since I have batting, I'm out of fusible fleece. It's very easy to use batting, but you could also use, like I mentioned, 2 pieces of flannel, and that works just as well. You're going to have to make markings on your fabric for your quilting lines, but that's what's great about this new designer home deck fabric. The markings are made for you. It's already on a diagonal, so I'm going to pin these down in a couple places just so this batting doesn't shift around, and I'm going to start sewing, and I'm going to start sewing in the middle. So I'm going to sew right here and right here to secure my top and bottom pieces with the batting. Again, if you use fusible fleece, it's a little bit easier, but this works too. So let me take it to the machine and sew. Okay, we finished our quilting on top. I love how it puffs up a little bit. Again, this is the perfect pattern to do this because it's in a grid. And look how cute that looks. So now that this is quilted, we can set it aside because now we're going to work on the front of our vinyl, clear view vinyl tote. So you've got these two strips, 2.5 inches by 12 inches, and you're going to fold it in half and give them a quick press. So just give them a nice press. Let it just cool off with that. Grab my next one. So you've got that ready to go. Just nice crisp edges. We'll move that right there. Okay, so now this is non-directional fabric. If you have directional fabric, you're gonna just have to pay attention to that because you want it facing the right way. So you're gonna take your first strip and you're going to flip it over. So the fold is what's going to be touching the zipper. So we're sewing this onto the vinyl first. And since you can't pin the vinyl, these clips come in handy. Just clip it on there. And I'm going to take it to the machine and sew across here a scant 1/4 inch. Okay, so I took it across my scant 1/4 inch and I'm just going to finger press it up. Now notice I did not take off the paper on the back, and that makes it so you can sew the vinyl easier because the paper catches on the bottom. You'll take the paper off in just a little bit. So now that I have sewn across that, I am just going to take it to the machine and do a top stitch right along that edge where I flipped it up to secure it onto the vinyl. Okay, so that's secured on there. Now I'm going to grab my zipper, and you always get the zipper a little bit longer. You're going to cut off the ends. So just whatever your project width is, buy a zipper a little bit longer than that. And so when you're assembling your product, your zipper, you can extend the zipper outside of it, and so it's easier to sew on. So the next thing we're going to do, now we can use pins a little bit, is secure the zipper on just like that. And you're going to want to use your zipper foot to secure your zipper on. Okay, with my zipper foot, I'm going to stitch all along here right next to my zipper edge. All right, so that side is sewn on. Now we're going to add the opposite side, lining that up, top and bottom, and then we're going to pin. Now that this is pinned, let's go sew the top half. Okay, I've sewn both sides. If you have a nice contrasting zipper, you can show more of the zipper. I've done it pretty tight against there because I just have a cream color. Just a reminder, when you go to sew on your zipper foot, you're gonna have to move your needle back and forth. I don't know how many times I put my zipper foot in and I started to sew and I break my needle. So a reminder to you before you sew to move the position of your needle back and forth on your zipper foot. Okay, now this is ready to go. You're going to zip your zipper down because it's easier to sew, you're going to leave it outside of your project. Now you're going to put it inside because you don't want to cut off your zipper pull. So you're going to move it in there. You're going to get your top piece, and now you get to decide what you want inside your bag and what you want on the outside. You can just choose what you like the best. I really kind of like this on the inside, and I love this one on the outside. Love these vintage ladies and their sewing. This was designed from old vintage patterns, so that's kind of fun. So we're gonna put this inside and line it up. But before we do that, it's time to take off our paper. And now it's easily taken off because you perforated it with your stitches. Let's put that down there. Can we flip that over? We're gonna line it up. You don't have to trim yet. Just make sure your zipper's pull is in the middle. And we're going to use these clips to secure it, and we're gonna do a basting stitch all the way around, following our bottom piece. Okay, bring your vinyl bag and look at it. See, look at all the different areas and make sure your zipper pull works. It's on the inside of your project, and you can give it a little trim up. Look at the bottom. It's going the right direction. Notice that when you're doing directional fabric, because the last thing you want to do is put on your binding and have things turned the wrong way. So I'm ready to trim up my sides. And I'm just trimming it up. There's a little extra vinyl from when I quilted the top. It didn't quite line up. I trim off extra threads. And then I'm going to trim off the other side of the zipper. And that looks pretty good. I'm just going to do one last trim. Push that aside. Again, look at everything again. It's also a good time, I've given you a reminder to make sure there's no threads on the inside. Just give it a quick look. And now you're ready to put on the binding. I have a great binding tutorial that you can watch, but today I'm just gonna hurry and put on my binding. You do need 2 inches width of fabric, and then you fold it over to make a 1-inch binding. This looks like it's been cut on the bias, but actually this print right here is printed on the diagonal, so it's just width of fabric. And with the fabric, you just need 1 piece for the binding. And since we're going to sew both top and bottom pieces, you're gonna sew it to the back, bring it forward, and then top stitch, finishing off your binding. Okay, check your binding. Make sure all edges, there's some threads. And now you're gonna roll it over to the top or the front facing. And it's gonna be tight. It's gonna be snug. And you are going to use your clips to hold it in place. And you're just going to really tug on it to cover up what you, your stitching, your base stitching. And sometimes you need to just make sure you don't trim off your binding corners, but I just kind of clip my corners so I can pull my binding over a little bit better. And I can tell I sewed my binding really close, too far in, so I'm going to trim that off right here. It's not going to cut into my binding at all, but for me to pull that over, trim that over, check that really, you gotta be careful when you do that. But now I can pull that over with ease. All right, we've sewn around all our edges. Let's give a quick trim to anything that are loose ends. Stop and start. Do one little final check. That looks good. I'm going to add a quick little charm to the zipper pull. You can embellish it with ribbon too, so our zipper works. Now we're ready to fill it. Put some fun thread, your sewing project, your rulers, scissors, and now you're ready to go.